Hey everyone, Reed here with Big Strong Book, author of Course of 1,000, now available on Amazon. And today we are talking about Post Captain by Patrick O'Brian. This is the second novel in his Aubrey Maturin series. Now, for those of you who are subscribed to the channel or have watched the channel, I reviewed the first book in the series, Master and Commander, about 3 months ago or so, and I liked it. I was intrigued. There was a lot of playfulness in the story, a lot of great character work that I really loved, um, but it wasn't enough, I think, for me to feel like I had to jump into the next book immediately. Um, and truthfully, I don't know what it was necessarily that inspired me to take up the second book when I did, which was literally yesterday. But I decided to. I felt I wanted to return to this world and see, okay, that piece of magic that I spotted in the first book that I could see was there. That was, I think, a testament to just the praise that the Aubrey Maturin series has received. I could see it within that first book, but I'm like, what if just one more book I think will really grab hold of me? And well, suffice to say, it did entirely. Um, Post Captain is on so many levels a wonderful book, and I think and it's also now making me appreciate Master and Commander too, but in a way that can only be done in a retrospect, not that I would have gotten just from reading that alone and not reading anything else in the series. So this book takes place, I mean, I don't know how long exactly after Master and Commander, but we kind of pick up with Jack Aubrey and Dr. Stephen Maturin sometime after the events of Master and Commander. And Aubrey is, we learn he's kind of beset with debt, and he's worried about being arrested by all the various creditors that might come out of the woodworks in London and in England as a whole. And he gets some property in England, and Maturin lives with him, and they become acquainted. There's this admiral. I think it's Admiral Hatton. I want to be sure. There again, and forgive me if I kind of butcher the character names here. There are so many uh, so many characters to keep track of. But there's an admiral that lives in. And there's also this family kind of headed by this matriarchal figure, Mrs. Williams, and she has I want to say two daughters, Sophia and Cecilia, and they have a cousin, Diana Villiers. Now I might be wrong on that, but I want to be absolutely sure. So I'm just gonna look here in the beginning of the book. Yes, Sophia, Cecilia, yes, are the daughters of Mrs. Williams. And so most of this book takes place on land as opposed to, on the hunt for a prize in the waters. And I knew that going into that, and I had heard that this book, I mean, it literally says on the front, it's a quote from Time magazine, if Jane Austen had written rousing sea yarns, she would have produced something very close to the prose of Patrick O'Brian. Now that's very, of course, very broad, but I have heard it described with this book in particular being very, like if you love Jane Austen, you'll love this book, and if you don't love Jane Austen, it might strain a little bit. And my opinion of Jane Austen is, it's I'll just say it's been far too long since I've read an Austen novel. I think I've only read Pride and Prejudice, and that was back in high school, and I don't think I had the mind to appreciate it back then. And I know I'm long overdue to potentially, I don't know, read something like Persuasion or Sense and Sensibility, but I do want to eventually return to Jane Austen. Um, but with that kind of a romance, but a romance that is in turn kind of it acts romance that acts as a broader societal commentary, which is what Jane Austen is renowned for, of course, and the satire therein. And to some extent, this is, I believe, is what Patrick O'Brian is doing here. This story starts as a little bit of a budding romance, and it extends to just greatly enrich the paths and the still ongoing arcs of Aubrey and Maturin to an immense degree. I and that's in a way that you can only really see when you step back at the end. But the humor that's on display in this novel too is something that I hadn't. I'm sure is present in Master and Commander, but I didn't really appreciate it in that one. And through that humor, through just I mean, for the most part in this book, because there's a little bit of a strain, the jovial relationship between Aubrey and Matron, the kinship and the bond that they share, it's that type of just friendship. I mean, that's what it is. It's just friendship and humor and all. Um, that I think it speaks to the greater tones of the world of this time of England coming up against Napoleon. Napoleon probably never makes an appearance, would assume, in this entire series himself, but he is. I would assume that he's the never present yet always present figure in the back of everyone's minds as they go about their lives in the Navy, and it's something that informs their decisions. It provides the motivation, but it's also tied to all these different things. You get Matron, who he is a surgeon, he's a doctor, he is a naturalist, he's also a spy. He's half Irish, half Catalan, and that it informs his way of going about things in such a just a fascinating way. I mean, I come out of this book ultimately just in awe of the characterization of Matron. Um, Aubrey is such a wonderful character as well, but I think I have more appreciation of Matron, especially in this one, and especially his relationship and with Diana Villiers, and the the fraught diary entries, just as he is trying to account for himself and write about his friend Aubrey, and sort of almost haplessly wonder at the state of things. And there's like what this means to be human, the all the desires therein, and they're having, of course, Aubrey and Matron, as they're entering into these romances, or maybe romances, but are romances that happen there, that they start to grow, but then they become strained, and then they come back again. It's uh they're having to reconcile their ways of doing things, but in a way that transforms uh, who they are as individuals, um, and how they view the world. You get Aubrey, who he is so very driven, and he's always on the hunt. He's on the hunt for a prize. It fills him so entirely. He's a man that is so interested in things in a similar complement to the way that Matron is. And but then he enters into this romance, and when he becomes fixed by something, like when he sees a prize ship, and not to say that Sophia in this is who he kind of enters into a romance with, is a prize to him. It's certainly something deeper, but it's somebody like him who has kind of lived his life with, you know, evading the creditors, trying to find a way out of something. And then when an object of interest is so, it's such a different atmosphere when you're having to combine kind of him on the water versus him on the land. And then you also have the great unseen presence of his father, General Aubrey, who I hope who if he ever, he might be another always constant but unseen character in the series. I don't know. Um, but he's having to move through that, and then of course with Maturin on his three different levels of doctor, surgeon, of naturalist, of spy, of man. You have all that, and that's all. I guess man is kind of the central, but all of that is encapsulated within it. And so again, Aubrey and Maturin, they kind of get involved with these women, with respectively with Sophia for Aubrey and Diana for Maturin, and the two of them end up going on all of these, a variety of escapades kind of in the first half of this book. It's very episodic, and I think in the same way that Master and Commander was. You even have at one point Aubrey kind of donning bear skin to pass for a bear so they can kind of sneak into Spain so as to avoid the French, the Napoleon's troops from rounding up all British subjects. You get a lot of wonderful humor there. But then what Aubrey desires more than all is he desires recognition, but he desires recognition, but it's not just, he's not two-dimensional in that way. He wants to live just in the same way Aubrey wants to live, just in the same way that Maturin wants to live. But they complement each other so well. And so again, the title of this book is Post Captain, and we eventually, that is what the goal is. But because of inner politicking within the Navy, within the Admiralty, Jack is Aubrey's not initially given that promotion. He has to really work for it, and it's almost as if this book, Post Captain, seems like the end of a two-part prologue that began with Master and Commander, this being the second part, and this now, the end of this being the point where then it feels like we really get into where the series begins. That's why I'm so excited to get my hand to just dig into the third book, HMS Surprise. But that's another story for another day. And Jack takes control of a ship called I don't know if it's I assume it's Polycrest, the Polycrest. I'm just going to call it that. And through that command, again, we get a better look into his ability to command. We saw that with the Sophie and Master and Commander, and eventually with the Caca Fuego, which I just realized, Caca Fuego, doesn't that just mean shit fire? Isn't that what that translates to? There's a ton of jokes like this. There's the curtailed joke in here. There were some wonderful fart jokes that they were just so clever, and it's hard to describe the humor, because while it's so dry, it flows into the story so well, and it just keeps you so engaged. There's even a point more towards the end of the book where Stephen brings on board a bunch of bees, and he's going to have them kind of in the cabin, and he has Coco all about, and he's so invested in this, and they're like, you have bees in the cabin, and he's like, yeah, I'm just looking at them. And uh, so where the quirks collide and all that, and beyond just um, Aubrey and Maturin, of course, we get a ever growing supporting cast, but we get Pollings, we get Parker in here as well, um, and we get Killick. Oh, I loved Killick. He was hilarious. Babington, MacDonald. Um, we get Admiral Hart, of course, who it took me a minute to remember. Oh, he was Captain Hart, and I remember Molly Hart from Master and Commander, and kind of that the implied history between her and Jack. And so then things that were kind of, seeds that were sown in Master and Commander start to come to fruition. We really see with Admiral Hart kind of him pushing back against Jack and really testing him, maybe more so than ought to be expected. But as Jack takes control of the Polycrest, and later in the book, the Lively, um, it's like the characters have, it really feels like they've crested a hill now. They've crested a hill, and I'm pleased to hear, at least from what I've gathered online, without spoiling things for myself, that a lot of the supporting characters in this book, um, there'll be supporting characters for a while. They definitely have a presence on the series going forward, and you can feel that there's definitely a different feel to Post Captain than there was in Master and Commander. Master and Commander was just it was like, again, and no offense to people who absolutely love Master and Commander, but it very much so felt like the pilot episode, and Post Captain felt like we've now gone through the first arc of season one. That's a horrible analogy, but that's kind of what I can think about it in relation to this. Um, it's so good. It is so good. It's so alive, and with Aubrey and Matron, and again, as I said, like what they desire, what they long for, and how that will be achieved, and how their friendship will hopefully grow stronger as a result of it. But now I think I have experienced and have started to see truly the richness of this series, that I can look back on Master and Commander and see again the seeds there, the nascent beginning of it. But Patrick O'Brien with this book, I think, really stepped it up a notch, and he's almost firing on all cylinders. Um, maybe it was a little too episodic for my taste. If like I could be really, really looking for criticisms here, but this was just a joy. And I remember I said in my Master and Commander review that it felt like a book that I could, you get lost into these, and you'll find like 100 pages have gone by, and you have to pull yourself out of it, or else you just read the whole thing. This is over 450 pages long, and I read it in a couple days. I didn't expect to read it in just a couple days, and I know that this is the longest book in the series. Um, but it was so lovely. It was so wonderful in its charm, in its humor, but even greater in its characters, in its promises, in the development that you are already starting to see, and will hopefully just continue rolling book by book. I'm just thrilled to see where this goes. So, uh, yeah, HMS Surprise. It's right on the horizon for me. I should be getting to that before too long. But Post Captain, or any of the Aubrey Maturin books, if you have read them, let me know what you think. And as always, I will see you guys next time.